Hey, Brent Porsey with the @TopVelocity hashtag pitching tips show. This is our season 2. You can check out the previous season we did a long time ago. It's still there on YouTube. It's fun to watch. I look a little different, a lot of different locations. We were in the old facility. This is the new facility. We've been here for about 3 years, so pretty cool to see the old version of it, but go check it out. And if you have a questions, you can ask any of your questions here in the bottom in the comments. Just ask us a question. We're gonna answer it for you on the show. We've had some great questions already answered, and we got some good ones today, so let's get started. This question comes from Alex, who's been translating our programs into Mandarin. This is coming from his groups. He said, I got a question from a student about the cocked position. He's saying that why can't, or it basically saying why can't the arm become 90 degree, which is vertical to the ground? Instead, the 3X program saying that it's better in 45 degree. Would this degree make pitcher to the flat arm syndrome? What he's saying is should we, at front foot strike, shouldn't we be at 90 degrees in cocking, which is if this is 0 degrees and this is 90, should we be at the 90 degree mark? Or should we be at the 45? That is basically how it's labeled in the 3X programs. And that actually comes from the ASMI study that found that this was the optimal position, 45 degrees in front foot strike. Why is that? It is important to know that you're trying to optimize hip to shoulder separation, because studies show when you have a larger margin between when your hip speeds peak to when your shoulder speeds peak, you're typically a higher velocity pitcher. But when you land, you're not fully at your hip peaks, you're very close. So you do have to start the driving and propelling and powering the rotational energy through the pelvis, but they're not fully open. So you're gonna get a peak just after landing. That's why you don't wanna be fully cocked, because when your arm is fully cocked, you typically wanna immediately start going into shoulder rotation. So if we're trying to optimize hip to shoulder separation, we wanna land and be just almost to 90, about 45, about halfway from 0 to 90. So I still have time to pop my hips open before my trunk wants to go. So it just helps us leverage even more optimal hip to shoulder separation by not being fully cocked at landing. Now he's talking about the flat arm syndrome, basically the arm being 0 degrees, be flat, laying down. You know, there are a lot of theories out there said that causes arm injury. There's actually a great study that showed early trunk rotation, which is the pulling of the glove early into front foot strike. Basically, when you land, you still want to be having your glove in line with the target. You don't want to be pulling yet. So pulling of the glove early or rotating the trunk early is typically what causes more of puts an inefficient sequence of the kinetic chain and leads to arm injury, because the end of the chain is typically going to get most of the error and lead to injury. But the study said it was really early trunk rotation, not so much say the inverted, you know, L's or W's if you've heard, or the flat arm syndrome. Those weren't really the best way to understand how the kinetic chain is basically inefficiently timing itself. So a flat arm, it can be bad unless your trunk stays back here. If I land here, my trunk stays there for a while and it gives my arm time, it's fine. But if I land here and I'm in early trunk rotation, that's really bad, because at the end of the day, this needs to get to 90 before rotation so the arm can lay back, and it's not late to lay back, which creates hyperangulation and drag on the arm, which is so hard on the shoulder and the elbow of the arm. So here's the thing, it's not so much flat arm that's the problem, it's the early trunk that's the problem. Basically, the early trunk is not gonna give the arm time to cock. So yeah, you could cock the arm early, or you could do a better job of keeping the trunk closed. And that's really, really the key. And that's what we do at Top Velocity. And that's why we like to use the medicine ball two-handed drills, because it forces us to keep the trunk closed. Because if we try to go early, we typically lose all the power in a two-handed throw to the ball. So those are really good questions, and those help you better understand the arm cocked timing position. Because from there on out, as the arm goes, it's really just moving where the trunk is pushing it. Studies show that. So you just got to understand where it needs to be cocked, and that's dependent on your hip to shoulder separation. And then from there, your trunk should take care of the arm path, because that, especially if your trunk has a lot of energy moving through it, and you've done a good job of propelling the energy through it. So that was a good question there, Alex. Appreciate you bringing that from your community. Let's check out another question. How would you differentiate 3X pitching from pushing jumping off the mound in regards to the back leg? Get this a lot. People think, well, triple extension, which is the extension of the ankle, knee, and hip flexor, that's not really a good movement because it makes you jump. Well, that would be just saying that that's all you should focus on is extending the leg. At the end of the day, what's that do? Extending those 3 joints, ankle, knee, and hip flexor, maximizes power in the lower half because you're pushing through all parts of the lower half. Now, yeah, you're maximizing power, but there's always something else you have to do when you go to maximize power in anything that you're throwing, hitting, or even shooting. For example, let's go to shooting. If I've got the gun and I got it loaded, I'm ready to maximize power through the barrel of the gun, the next thing I have to do is aim the gun. So I could have the greatest gun in the world, the most powerful gun in the world, to do the most damage in the world, but if I don't aim it where I want it to go, it's a waste. So just like it is in your body, if I am trying to maximize all this power in my lower half and drive it towards the target, yeah, I want to be able to sit, load, triple flexion of all 3 joints, ankle, knee, and hip flexor. I want to be able to extend all 3 joints, ankle, knee, and hip flexor to maximize ground force, but I got to aim it. So how do we aim it? That's the force vector. That's when your shin back here starts to get linear. When the shin gets linear, now you're starting to aim it and direct it to where you want to go. And now when you triple extend like this, right, it moves you towards the target. And if you delay your trunk, then it pushes energy through the trunk. And then you get all that great power moving through the kinetic chain to the ball, because studies show 86% of the energy in the ball came from the trunk. And what drives the trunk but the legs? Why do the legs drive? To push off the ground, okay? So at the end of the day, triple extension is the optimal movement. Not everybody's gonna achieve it because it's optimal, and not everybody is optimized. But if you are going to get the most out of it, you can't just triple extend. You have to align your force vectors so you can direct it, just like a gun, to where you want to go, or it's going to be wasted energy, wasted power. So that's another great question. So if you have a question, put it down below. Ask your question. We'll definitely answer it on the show, and I hope that helped. Appreciate you following us. Subscribe, like us, and we'll see you next time.